My next guest, you know who he is, the man behind American Top Team. He's also managing one of the most popular fighters in the sport right now, in Colby Covington. It is Mr. Dan Lambert back here on the program. Dan, how are you?
Popular is an interesting choice of words, but I'm good.
Well, that's kind of where I wanted to start this interview. UFC 235 a couple weeks ago. Colby Covington, in my opinion, sort of stole the headlines that weekend. Starting first with the disrupting Kamaru Usman at the open workouts, and then getting in, confronting Dana White at the Palms, which was interesting. I wanted to know, as this is all happening, because I'm sure you were in the loop with everything. Are you worried at all that this could backfire and that this is actually going to make the UFC upset at him and potentially cut him or something like that?
I mean, I guess Colby was looking at his options and, pros and cons and, how could it get much worse than the con? He was shut out of a title fight that he was primed up for and earned, and he was the interim champion and the number one contender, and he got passed over. So I guess he figured, how much worse could it get?
As this is all happening, is he letting you know what's going on, or is he just like, you know what, I'm going to go to Vegas and I'm going to try and get, grab some headlines, make some noise, so to speak?
I knew he was heading out there, and I figured, I'd probably hear about it sooner rather than later from different sources, and it didn't take long for my phone to start ringing. So, I knew he was going to be out there. I knew he was going to hit an open workout. I certainly didn't know he was going to roll up on Dana at a blackjack table, but hell, he probably didn't either. He's probably just happened to be staying at the same hotel and heard he was there and said, what the fuck?
Yeah, and sort of the last thing on that, there was that confrontation with him and Kamaru Usman at the Palms at the I believe the buffet table. What did you make of all that? And Kamaru's manager getting involved. It seemed like something out of pro wrestling in a way, which I actually don't mind. I like seeing that stuff.
I don't mind pro wrestling angles either. It seemed like an old angle out of Memphis, if you ask me. But I thought that was kind of stupid. I mean, I don't know why Kamaru would go and try to confront Colby at a place where he knows they're not going to fight. B, like Ben Askren likes to say, dude, I signed up for this. I'm here to fight. You don't need to come up and meet in a dressing room or backstage. I want to fight you inside the cage. And Kamaru just got the belt. I mean, he doesn't need to go after anybody. They're all coming for him. As far as Ali getting involved, I don't get that either.
Okay. Were you surprised to see Tyron Woodley lose the way he did against Kamaru Usman?
Yeah, just seems like every now and then T Wood does not have the best performances when he's on his A game. I haven't seen anybody touch him. When he's on his B game, he can still get by, but if he brings his C game, which he has from time to time, that's going to be tough, especially when you're fighting a high level guy like Kamaru. I guess it's not easy being a rapper and an actor and a UFC champion all at the same time, and it's also not easy having your best performance every time, even if you're focusing solely on fighting. Every now and then guys have bad days,
So Dana White announces after UFC 235 that Colby Covington will be fighting Kamaru Usman next. Have you spoken to Dana at all since this has all happened? Because, again, it's funny the way sort of the narrative was, all the media was saying, oh, Colby's going to get cut and this is bad for the sport. And he gets a title shot. It worked. Have you talked to the UFC since then?
Yeah, I've talked to him, and they've confirmed with me that Colby's next with Usman, pending Usman's status, coming back from a surgery that he just had, which apparently is not very serious, and he should be back sometime in the summer. Not surprising. I mean, Colby was the interim champ. As far as I'm concerned, he's still the interim champ. I've never gotten any legal notice that he's not anymore from them as required by a contract. So, I mean, who else would you put Usman up against right now?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a lot of sense at this point, especially with this, Darren Till and George Masvidal fight that's taking place on the weekend. Like, if Till wins that, then, obviously no one wants to see a Till, title fight anytime soon, the way he lost his last fight. But just, kind of on the timing of a potential fight, what are you looking at? I mean, they're talking about maybe that Chicago card, maybe the summer. What in your mind would be sort of an ideal situation for Colby to take that fight against Kamaru?
Colby's ready to go right now. I mean, other than a 3-week period when he was having surgery, he's been ready, willing, and able to fight for a belt anytime, anywhere. So he'd be thrilled to go to Chicago in June. If Kamaru's not ready in June, he would be happy to go in July, International Fight Week. If Kamaru can't do that show, he'd be happy to go on the next one. So this one's all on the champ side.
And I imagine Colby was right back to training after Vegas. I know he's been training the whole time, but I guess he's getting in right now, thinking that this fight could happen, just in a few months.
And from the time he stopped healing from that surgery that he had, he's been in the gym and he's been ready. So, it's not a Colby issue. I know the UFC's tried to, present it as a fact where Colby didn't step up when he had his chance. You need to step up when you have the chance. And I get it. They've got their schedule and they know, what they need when they need it, but it just doesn't always work the same way on the fighter side. And unfortunately, it didn't work for Colby on that one particular date, on that one particular show in September, shortly after he won the belt. But other than that, he's been ready, willing, and able to go. So it looks like he's the next shot. The only person who even has a claim to another a title shot right now would be T. Wood. I mean, he held the title for a long time. He defended it a lot of times. But, it seems like the latest trend with the UFC is they're not too anxious to give immediate rematches to guys. I mean, look at Stipe Miocic. He hasn't fought in, 10 months or so, waiting for his fight. Yeah. So I don't know where that is in the future, but they told me it's Colby next. So he's just getting ready for it.
Speaking of title fights, Dustin Poirier, great opportunity here getting to fight Max Holloway for the interim lightweight title. I'm sure you speak to Dustin on a regular basis. What was his mindset after it appeared like nothing was going to happen with him? It seemed, we saw the tweets, obviously very frustrated. How was it, trying to keep him motivated and just say, look, I'm sure it's going to work out?
Dustin's been around a long time, and Dustin's put on some really good fights. I mean, that you talk about a guy who comes to fight and delivers, and he's been on a really good win streak. And it seems like every fight he had over the last 3 or 4 fights has been, hey, man, this is the one. You win this one and your title shot's next. It's a main event here. It's a 5-rounder against this guy. You're fighting Gaethje. You're fighting Pettis. You're fighting Eddie. You're fighting champ after champ after champ, and your title shot's next as long as you look good. And, man, he's finishing these guys. So it was really frustrating for him to be right on the brink of getting it and then being told that he wasn't getting it. But it was short-lived. In this sport, you just never know. And, luckily he had that mindset where I'm going to stay in the gym and I'm going to keep getting ready just in case it comes, because he doesn't live in Florida anymore. But he came down here to get ready for that fight in case he got the nod. And when he didn't get the nod, he said, you know what, I'm still going to stick it out and stay in camp and hope it turns out for me. And it did. So good for him. And I'd be hard-pressed to pick another guy in the gym that I'd rather see win a UFC title right now than Dustin Poirier, because, man, that guy deserves it.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that fight coming up here next month. Amanda Nunes, we've heard a lot of talk in the media about, what her next move is. There was a report that came out, I don't know if you saw it, that said that she wanted the Cyborg rematch for $3 million. Did you see that? And if so, what was your response?
I saw it. I haven't talked to her much because she's been in Brazil and doesn't get great reception at her mom's house, wherever in the hell that is.
Right, yeah.
It's not like in a major city. But she's not looking to fight Cyborg in the next fight. She wants to get back and defend her title at 135. I think if you ask me, I think the UFC's plan is let her defend the 135 title and then maybe let Cyborg fight somebody else. And then, if they both win, maybe gear that up for the end of the year for a rematch. Obviously she wants to get paid as much as she can for that rematch, and she should. She's the champ. She's finished the best of the best in the women's division. And I think she deserves it, but I would expect her to fight next at 135, and she'll be back here, I think, in about a week, and she'll start training. And I've already relayed to the UFC that she'll be ready to go and find her an opponent, hopefully at 135, and let's get her going.
Do you think that opponent will be Holly Holm? I think a lot of us were surprised to see that fight with Aspen Ladd pulled off. Just, randomly, Dana's like, yeah, the fight's not happening. So I think we all thought it would be Holly Holm, but, I don't know what the latest is on that. Is that what you're hearing?
That fight makes a lot of sense, but, takes 2 to tango. So I don't know where Holly is on her contract or, when she's fighting or where she's fighting. That opponent would make a lot of sense. She's the only 135-pound champ Amanda hasn't faced and beaten, and I think she'd love to do that. And Holly's still got a strong appeal. I mean, Holly's a draw. I don't know if that's just residual effect from, being the one to originally beat Ronda and stop that freight train, or if it's just, people like the way she fights, or the farm preacher's daughter, or what it is. But she's a draw, so Amanda wants to fight people who are draws because that means more money for Amanda.
And just last thing on that potential fight, we've heard rumblings that November would be the time Amanda wants to get back. You're kind of suggesting it would be sooner than that. When do you think we'll see Amanda back in the cage?
Oh, I think you'll see Amanda back this summer. She'll be ready before then.
Okay. Well, interesting because, International Fight Week doesn't have any fights booked. So that would be an interesting matchup on there. Let's talk a little bit about, or sticking with the women, I should say, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. What's the latest with her? What's her next move? We're hearing maybe, staying at strawweight, maybe going back up to 125. What have you heard?
She needed some time to decompress. She had been pretty busy and pretty active. She went back home, traveled a lot, spent a lot of time with her family. And I'm actually supposed to be talking to her today. She's already booked a plane ticket to get back here, I think sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and she wants to start camp. Actually, she wants to get better before her camp. It seems like she's always been in camp, just getting ready for fights. And, sometimes as a fighter, you need to get better between fights and between camps. You get ready during camp, you get better between camps. So I think she wants to come back and spend a little time getting better in the gym and then get a camp and fight later in the year. I'm not 100% sure what weight it's going to be. I think it all depends on whether she wants to go through that weight cut and she feels comfortable jumping back down to straw weight. I think it's probably a quicker path to a title shot for her. So, my advice would be if that weight is comfortable for you, that's the weight class you should be in. But if it's not, no need to put yourself through that. She's a popular fighter. People want to see her fight at any weight.
Well, and I think if Jessica Andrade is able to dethrone Rose Namajunas, that certainly makes things interesting. That would be an interesting rematch with her and Joanna. So there you go. Lots of interesting pieces moving. One last thing on ATT, Junior Dos Santos, really big win last weekend over Derek Lewis. Just your thoughts on his performance and the fact that I think people are writing him off, and it clearly looks like he's back and in the top contention.
Man, I guess, people have short memories. They're so quick to write you off for this sport, and then they're so quick to jump back on, and maybe especially at the heavyweight division. That's a tough division to get a sustained win streak. I mean, guys hit hard, and he was on a little bit of a bad run, and he righted the ship and made a few changes, and now he's racked off 3 in a row impressively, and he's right back there in the title talk. I'm happy for him. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a legend of the sport. I think he's a future Hall of Famer, and man, that guy can knock anybody out. So we'll see what happens for him next. I've heard talk about Ngannou. Who knows what's going to happen in the title picture? I don't know if Stipe's getting another shot. I don't know if Brock Lesnar's coming back. I really don't know what's going on. But he's staying in Florida. He's not going back to Brazil. He's going to keep training. He's going to have a baby coming up here in the next few months. So he's going to be grounded here in South Florida. So he'll be training in the meantime, and hopefully he gets in there and stays busy.
I've heard he's just been such a great addition to the team. I mean, we see a little, glimpses of his personality in his interviews, but how is he in the gym and how is he sort of, blended with the rest of the group?
He's a great guy. He is a great guy. I've never heard a bad word said about JDS, which is pretty rare in this sport. It's typically some people have something bad to say about somebody. So he's a great guy to have in the gym, and it's always great to have heavyweights. It's not the easiest weight class to stack up in a gym. And, if you have a weight class where you have 2 or 3 guys that are high-level guys, people are like, wow, you got a lot of, heavyweights in the gym. You really don't, because, this guy just fought. He's taken a month or 2 off, or this guy's injured, or this guy's traveling. I mean, it's nice to have a solid rotation of guys in the gym, and especially at heavyweight. So, we're fortunate enough right now where we've got a nice crew, and he's fit in nicely with that crew, and they all help each other.
Let's talk some pro wrestling. Always got to talk about that with you when we're doing these interviews. Ronda Rousey's made some interesting comments lately. I don't know if it's in character or out of character. We're not really sure, but she's been talking about this whole, wrestling is fake. I don't know if you've seen the comments. If you have, what's your take on that as someone who's, been involved in both sports?
I don't think she's saying anything that isn't pre-approved or dictated by the top brass. I don't think that's the way it works at WWE, even if you are Ronda Rousey. So I'm sure that's part of the storyline. I don't know. It makes me cringe a little bit. It's like, it's nice to have that suspended disbelief when you go to a wrestling match and say, but what if, and I don't know if they really want that thrown in their face. I think it might be better if she just said, pro wrestlers are wimps and, we're tougher.
Right.
I'm an MMA fighter. I will kill you in a real fight. And this is going to be a real fight. But I mean, I'm still really impressed with her and how she's done since she got there, especially in the ring. I mean, I think she's taken it like a fish to water, and with a brief training camp, so to speak, to learn her profession at the training center, she got in there and she's having really good matches. So I give her a lot of credit.
Do you think Amanda Nunes would ever be open to doing like a vignette of training one of Rousey's opponents on the pro wrestling side? Is that something that's ever been discussed?
Man, you'd be surprised how many people in the gym watch pro wrestling and say, man, I'd love to do that. That looks like so much fun. So my answer would be absolutely.
I think I brought this up last time, but I'll ask you again because, obviously the focus is going to be on her for this year. Kayla Harrison, they're doing a whole tournament, I think really highlighted around her in PFL. How do you think she'd do in pro wrestling? Because she's got a really good personality and obviously with the judo background as well. It could be very intriguing, kind of like what we're seeing with Ronda Rousey.
Man, I can't think of anything I don't think Kayla would do well at. I mean, she's got a lot of charisma, got a great personality. She's a beast physically. I think she would take well to anything in any situation you put her in. I think she's going to win that tournament. I know they added a couple good names in that tournament. I think I saw Sarah Kaufman got added to the tournament, and that's great. I would much rather see her go in with some stiffer competition because I think it's going to show how good she really is this quick, and I think she's going to keep getting better. And whether it was judo or MMA or pro wrestling or acting or whatever, I think she could do just about anything. She's a bundle of energy.
And I was just thinking about this, like hypothetically, if she ever did go to pro wrestling, she could do both, babyface or heel, because the whole Olympic story, that's kind of a Kurt Angle thing, and then the heel side of it, I think she could come across as a pretty good villain as well, just with her personality. She's very outspoken, and I mean that in the nicest way. Like I think that she's obviously has a very dynamic personality.
If I got anything to say about, she'll be a heel. Screw the baby faces.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, I think so too. If you just see the banter between her and Rocco, her boyfriend, it's pretty funny. I'm sure you see that every day in the gym.
I see it all the time. They are a riot, and that's it's kind of a little bit of the culture of our gym where people like to bust balls and have fun. They work hard and they train hard, but we try to keep it light. And those two, man, they fit right in.
Who would be a better manager for Bobby Lashley in wrestling, you or Leo Rush?
Oh, geez. I certainly can't jump around and do all the flips and shit that Leo Rush does.
Right.
So I'll give him his credit for that. I like the MMA angle that we did. Obviously, I'm a little biased that we did an Impact, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I know Bobby was hoping to try to get that a run in WWE, but I don't know if there's any interest in that or not. But it'd be a lot of fun if we ever got that opportunity.
What's your favorite storyline right now in pro wrestling?
I loved the Becky Lynch storyline when she won the Rumble, and I was like, man, this is awesome. People were getting behind her, kind of like they did with Daniel Bryan a few years back before his injury. And I don't know, the last couple of weeks, it's kind of lost a little bit of steam for me. I didn't like her backdooring into Mania through the disqualification. I would have liked to have seen a really good match and seen her win her way into it. I think that's taken a little bit of steam off it. I really like the push that Kofi Kingston's getting right now. I'd love to see that guy get his shot. And I kind of like that because it's more organic. It wasn't something that was just preordained and they put him in that position and try to shove it down people's throats. I mean, he's in his position now, just people are insisting on it. The fans are going crazy for him. So I kind of like that angle as well. As far as, in the ring, I like AJ Styles and Randy Orton. I think that's going to be fun to watch because, they're both so good at what they do. But I think it should be a pretty good Mania.
And, one more wrestling-related question. Jake Hager, a.k.a. Jack Swagger, had his Bellator debut last month. What did you think of, him in the cage and just, his addition to Bellator?
I think he looked good. I think he did what was expected of him. I think they gave him a favorable matchup. They could come in there and look good, but you still have to do it when the door locks. It's his first time doing it, and a lot of people get shook when it's their first time doing it. And I thought he got the job done, looked all right. And he's a big, strong guy, pretty athletic guy. So, see what happens. Right training, right mindset. I guess we'll see.
What's on tap as far as American Top Team? I know George Masvidal this weekend, but what else is going on over the next couple of weeks? And I also mentioned Dustin's title fight next month.
Yeah, DP and George are obviously real big ones. We got a show here in our backyard, April 27th. We got like 4 or 5 people fighting on that. We got Yoel Romero in the main event. We got John Lineker. We got Greg Hardy fighting on that show. So that show will be some fun. We got Kyoji Horiguchi and King Mo both fighting for titles over in Ryzen, April 21st. So looking forward to that. Edson Barboza is fighting against Gaethje in Philly coming up. And man, if you don't want to see that fight, you stop.
You can't be an MMA fan if you don't like that.
You're not an MMA fan. I mean, that's like Holloway and Poirier and Gaethje and Barboza. I mean, my God, what more could you? I just want to be a fan and watch those fights.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And it's always great talking to you, Dan. Thanks so much for the time. It's always great catching up. Anything you want to plug, any social media, any sponsors, anything at all from the gym, by all means, the floor is yours, sir.
Nope, just appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully they're cheering for our guys, and hopefully our guys keep doing well. We got a bunch of big fights coming up. We got Poirier fighting for a title, got Colby fighting for a title, Thiago Santos, Maheta, looks like he's next for John Jones. Kyoji Mo over in Ryzen, Douglas Lima in the Bellator tournament. So, things are going well. It's still hard to win those fights, but hopefully the guys will do good.